Kelsey of Nested Sleep. Thank you so much for joining today. Today we're going to be talking all about how to make the 2 down to 1 nap transition with your baby or toddler. This is a transition that has a pretty big age gap, right? So for some kiddos, they are ready to make this transition at closer to 12 to 14 months. For other kiddos, they're closer to 18 months. So again, that's a pretty big gap. So what we're going to be talking about today is the signs that you can be looking for, the developmental stages that you can be looking for in your baby or toddler to know that they're ready. So when we look at overall research for baby naps, we know that babies and toddlers, and even up through preschool and young school age, naps are really, really important. Naps are important for memory consolidation, for them to be learning the different developmental stages, going through and working on those gross motor skills and fine motor skills. It's really important for them to be getting that break during the day, that time out to rest, consolidate those memories, and just really get all of that soaked in. So when we know that they need naps, we know they still need that daytime sleep. Obviously, they still need that overnight good quality sleep too. So we want to always, when we're looking at sleep, be looking at the total 24 hours and what their total sleep needs are for their ages. If you need that info, please check out my website. It's also available to all of my clients. I give a whole resource guide specific to baby's age. Okay, so your child is starting to, you know that they're in this age range, the 12 months up through about 18 months, and they're starting to show you some signs. So let's talk about what some of those signs are that they're showing you. So number one, I always want to say that before you even think about making this transition, never look at just a number, right? So you don't want to look and say, okay, my baby's just had their first birthday, like I'm ready to make a transition. There's so many transitions that first year of life due to sleep and nap schedules and all of that. But when babies are on 2 naps a day, they typically stay there for a little while. And that chunk of nap time, having 1 morning nap and 1 afternoon nap, don't completely just give up on that. Really, if they're having trouble with naps and they're more like in the 10 to 13 month old range, don't automatically jump to, okay, they must just be ready for 1 nap. And okay, they're kind of at that age. Don't use an age, don't use just a number to think about making the transition. Let's talk about what signs you want to be looking for. Number 1, you would want to look at what is your child doing during the day? Who is their care provider during the day? Because sometimes this decision can be made for you, and that is important to validate. Some care providers, some daycares do need to have 1 nap a day earlier than maybe other babies might be ready for it. So you want to have a pretty consistent schedule for the days that a child is in daycare or is with a nanny and on a set schedule, and then when they're home with you. So some cases, in that case, you may move them to a 1 nap a day earlier than you would. But of course, please work with your care provider and talk with them if you do feel like they are not quite ready, because they can usually help with that transition and help you make some different changes if needed. Okay, so the different signs that you would be looking for that your baby is showing you, okay, like probably ready to just have that 1 nap a day. First of all, it's not a clear cut, they show you the sign once and you're like ready to go. Usually you want to, when you're looking at how a baby is asleep, look at a pattern. So look at how things are going over a period of a couple weeks. So if you're seeing that like 5 out of 7 nights or most nights of the week, their bedtime is being later. Okay, well that is one sign that maybe they're getting too much daytime sleep. So that's one thing. Sign number 1 would be that your child, in order to fit those 2 naps a day in during the day, now has a later bedtime, and that later bedtime is causing them to have like a fussier evening, or you know that they're just not getting that good quality overnight sleep. So their overnight sleep is being affected, being one sign. Another sign would be that in addition to their overnight sleep being affected, again, very frequently having early morning awakenings. That can be one sign. And then a third sign that you may start to see is that that second nap of the day starts to get dropped. In some babies, it may turn into just a cat nap, so you're putting them down for that afternoon nap as you always have. All of a sudden, it's only 15-20 minutes, or they may be refusing it altogether. So if that's the case, then again, look at that pattern. Is it happening pretty consistently over a period of a couple weeks? Then you may want to start thinking about making a transition. So again, you've picked up on a pattern happening for a long period of time, couple weeks, they're having the signs, they're dropping that second nap, it's a short second nap, they may have disturbed overnight sleep and those early morning awakenings. Okay, what are your next steps? Well, as we talked about it not being a clear cut and dry of when to go about making the 2-to-1 nap transition, it's also not like, okay, one day, done, happened. It takes a period usually of this is one of the harder nap transitions, and it does usually take a period of a couple weeks for them to get into that new rhythm and new pattern. The number one thing that will be helpful to do is that the morning nap is usually the more consistent one, the one where the baby or toddler is usually falling asleep quite well for. So you want to take that nap and slowly over a period of a couple of days, adjust it by 15 to 30 minutes. So that means if they're typically going down at 9 o'clock in the morning for their first nap of the day, you would change that to 9:15. Do that for a couple of days, then move it to 9:30. And continue to move that later and later into the day. While you're doing that, the afternoon nap, you may still offer them the nap, especially if that morning nap is still pretty earlier in the day. Or if the morning nap is now like 10:30, they may not be tired for the afternoon nap, or they may take a stroller nap. They may be out and about and fall asleep for a cat nap in the car for 20 minutes. That is okay. This is not a long-term solution that your child is always napping in the car for 20 minutes. This is during this transition of a couple weeks. They may need just a little extra. And that is completely fine. So know that making this transition can happen over the course of a couple weeks or even a month. And so kind of going into it knowing that. Now I will say that babies typically that you're making the transition at closer to a year or in the 12 to 15 month range, the transition can take a little longer. For babies that are a little bit older, more in the 15 to 18 month range, they may be just ready for it. They may be ready to go and may not need quite as much of a push or quite as much of that transition to happen. And know that some kids, if they're normally for their 2 naps a day, we're sleeping like an hour and a half in the morning and an hour and a half in the afternoon, that may not necessarily mean that their 1 nap a day is going to be a 3-hour nap. It may, that may be what they need, but they may just have less daytime sleep needs, and that's okay. Typically at the first time you're transitioning down to this 1 nap, babies are still typically sleeping an hour and a half to 3-hour range, but know that those are averages, and of course they can vary. So I hope you enjoyed this guide to learning about how to help your baby have a successful transition from 2 naps down to 1. Thanks so much.